Atauro Island. Heard of it? Maybe you should have. The island may be small, but it sure is special. Scientists think that the coral reef that surrounds the island is the most diverse of any they have found, anywhere in the world. For communities living on the island, the reefs aren't just something to marvel at. They underpin the local economy and an entire way of life. Most people here are subsistence fishers, feeding their families and making their money from their fishing catch. The reef is facing some problems though. Increased demand means that fishing has increased and is becoming unsustainable. Plastic pollution is pervasive, and although the coral may well be some of the healthiest in the world, climate breakdown still poses an immediate threat. So like many small-scale fishing communities across the world, the community of Beloy has been looking for options and alternatives to reduce the pressure that fishing has on a reef. Enter the homestay. Homestays refer to a model of ecotourism where guests are offered accommodation in traditional homes in the community, spending their time with local families who act as hosts and guides. This benefits the host family, who receives an income that would often otherwise go to international hotels, and the guest, who enjoys a rich and authentic cultural experience with people that know the island and all that it has to offer. As you can no doubt imagine, accessing the international tourism market can be a challenge, but a challenge that this community is taking on. 2 years ago, a contingent of community members from Beloy village on Atauro travelled to Raja Ampat in Indonesia for part 1 of a community learning exchange. It's a simple but effective idea. Community learning exchanges provide a way for different groups of people to learn from one another by bringing one community group to visit the other. By discussing their shared experiences around homestays together, both groups can identify solutions to problems that homestay businesses may be facing. Back in 2017, the first part of this exchange saw both groups explore the motivations behind starting a homestay business, discuss why establishing a formal association of homestay owners is useful, and the experiences they had had in developing them, and the importance of protecting the natural environment to draw tourists to their islands. In late 2018, the exchange was brought full circle, as the community from Raja Ampat and representatives from Kudat in Malaysia travelled to Atauro to further the learning around developing homestays in their communities. A warm welcome, plenty of good food, and some old friends helped the guests from Raja Ampat and Malaysia settle into their homes for the days ahead. Each day, participants attended a workshop offering a mix of activities designed to help them learn more about running a homestay business. Each session gave the participants the chance to think through important issues that might affect the development of the homestays, learn some new practical skills, and get honest feedback, advice, and support from their peers. The first few sessions were led by the group from Raja Ampat, who were able to share what they had learned from over 6 years of running homestays. Topics like improving guest comfort and experience, and discussing the importance of protecting their own natural heritage to ensure that reefs, forests, and other ecosystems are used sustainably and continue to attract tourists, were explored in depth.
It's very important for me and for everyone to protect. For example, in conservation, we have to take care everything that God's already put in the sea, because that's belong to the sea, and every one of us have obligation to take care and also to protect.
Later sessions covered the importance of running their homestay businesses in a sustainable and self-sufficient way, and mapping out how to spread the benefits of homestays across the wider community. For example, by hiring local staff to work in homestays and sourcing food from local markets. Outside of the formal activities, there was plenty of time to enjoy all that Atauro Island offers, including, of course, exploring those beautiful reefs.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining BV's latest Toko Telo session, sharing experiences from the front lines of community-led conservation. So my name is Ryan Lewis. I work for Blue Ventures as a technical advisor of ecotourism business development. And today I'll be chairing this interactive discussion on how community-based ecotourism can act as a catalyst for sustained, locally led marine protection. There will also be a follow-up event hosted by WWF in December that will focus on innovative financing solutions for community-based ecotourism, and further details for this will be shared in due course. Today, we will profile the role that ecotourism as an alternative livelihood can play in building resilience within small-scale fishing communities and its effectiveness in engaging in marine stewardship and pride in the marine ecosystems that so many depend upon. There is no escaping that 2020 has brought unprecedented challenges to this sector. The resilience of communities already disproportionately affected by the climate crisis and diminishing fish stocks has been tested to the core. To offer some scale, in 2019, tourism represented approximately 30% of the world's exported services, estimated at a massive 1.5 trillion US dollars. And in developing countries, this figure rises up to 45%. These revenues have been decimated this year, placing millions of livelihoods at risk. So we will attempt to address some of these enormous challenges that community-based tourism is currently facing and discuss potential solutions for now and the future of community-led marine ecotourism. To do this, we're very happy to bring together a panel that can provide an insight into the successes and challenges of community-based tourism across different contexts. Our speakers today are Francesca Trotman of Love the Oceans, Laura Kelsom of Stay Raja Ampat, and Adrian Wells of the consultancy firm 73. But before we begin, just some housekeeping. So this session today, there will be two parts. Firstly, our speakers will each talk us through their work, followed by a question and answers session. We hope this will give the opportunity for the audience to submit some questions and take an active role. The second part, for those that have registered, will be splitting up into breakout groups and the chance for everyone to discuss these topics in greater detail. The first section will be recorded, but the breakout sessions will not. The recording, as well as feedback from the breakout session and resources from our speakers, will be made available on the Toko Telo website as soon as possible after the event. To ask a question in this section, please use the YouTube comments box. You will need to be logged into your YouTube account to submit a question. In the breakout rooms, we'd like to create a space where everyone has the opportunity to voice their opinions and ideas, so please do contribute and allow others to contribute as well. For any technical problems, please email digital@blueventures.org. And at the end, there will be a short feedback questionnaire where we'd really appreciate you taking a moment to fill in. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker over in Mozambique, Francesca Trotman, founder of Love the Oceans. Over to you, Francesca.
Hi everyone, so my name's Francesca. I am, as Ryan said, the founder of Love the Oceans. So I've got a few slides which I'm going to take you through just to explain a little bit more about what we do. I've already introduced myself. We're a micro charity, so we're a very small organisation. So we have two other permanent staff members, Pascal, who is our community outreach manager and lives about 20 minutes away from me here, and Andrea, who's our director, and she is currently stuck in London because of COVID, but would otherwise normally be here. And our mission is to establish a marine protected area in this region. So everything we do is aiming towards that. So the model that we're designing, the idea is that it can be replicated up and down the coastline of Mozambique and other less economically developed countries. It's basically a model that can be replicated. So we're pretty open about what we do. So we're going to achieve the marine protected area in Jangamo, which is where I'm talking to you from and where we're based, through three different approaches. So these aren't really steps or stages. We don't do one after another, and not one isn't more important than the other. They're all equally important. So we have our education section. We work with 10 to 13-year-olds teaching basic marine resource management. So that's things like ocean trash, coral reefs, and marine protected areas and things like that. And then we also teach sea safety. So that's because we have a bay with very strong riptide here. There's been a lot of drownings in the last three years alone. We've had 13 drownings, and around 95% of people can't swim in this area, which means that you can imagine that if you can't swim and none of your family can swim, and every time someone went into the ocean they died, you probably wouldn't be passionate about protecting the ocean. So we teach about the theory of riptides, because that's the way that most people drown here, in the lessons. And then we have a practical side of that, teaching free swimming lessons to 4 to 18-year-olds on the weekend too. The idea of that being that we can foster passion for the ocean through swimming, because the kids progress from beginner to intermediate to advanced and then into the open water, so they can enjoy the marine environment in all its glory. Then we also have workshops with the active local fishermen as well. So we run a project with the fishermen, but those workshops, those educational workshops, are largely based off sustainability and conservation again. So obviously more advanced than what we teach with children, but it's around subjects like turtle poaching and why turtle poaching is bad, what sustainable fishing looks like, which fish are good to catch, which fish are bad, what method of fishing is the most sustainable, all of that kind of stuff. And all of our educational section is based off what we found with our research. So we're the only NGO working in this district. So there's never been any data set created here before. So all of our research is the first of its kind here, which is cool in that obviously anything you come up with is the first time it's been done, but it's also quite difficult because there's no historic data set to understand what has been going on in the ocean here historically. So we have a lot of different areas of our research, and with all of our research it's used to inform legislation change and community conservation action. So we have our fisheries research, which is looking at the sustainability of different types of fishing, and we also have an active shark fishing fisheries here for the shark fin trade. So obviously it's working to document that and the extent of it. We also have our megafauna research. So we're very lucky we have what we call the sexy species of marine megafauna here. So we have humpback whales, we have whale sharks, and we have manta rays. So we collect an ID database on that, and conservation population status, allowing us to come up with a local conservation status for those animals. And then with the humpback whales, we also look at bioacoustics and also habitat use for dolphins. And the marine megafauna research is largely to do with trying to prove that we have so many of these species, because during humpback whale season we have so many humpback whales. We're largely trying to prove that we can basically guarantee a tourist sighting, so it's a very feasible source of income, ecotourism, versus unsustainable fishing methods, which is obviously a limited source of income. The fisheries research is mainly trying to work to improve the sustainability of the fisheries in the area, and also eliminate some types of fishing like net fishing and the shark long lining that I mentioned. We also have our ocean trash research, which is looking at what kind of trash we have washing up on our beaches and working to upcycle that into eco bricks, which are basically like bricks made of plastic that you can use in local construction projects. And then we have our coral reef research, which is trying to prove that what we have is worth protecting and getting a better understanding of the marine habitat here. So as I said, all of our research we conduct to inform legislation change and community action. So the fishermen have like this pull factor of the education, wanting to live more sustainably, and the push factor of the legislation change, but you then have to provide a financially feasible way for people to choose the more sustainable option. That's where our sustainability section comes in. So really that's about identifying barriers that stand in people's way, and working to remove them. So that's our alternative livelihoods, things like aquaponics, sustainable fishing methods, skippering, dive instructing, ecotourism based activities to alleviate pressure on the ocean, because that comes with poverty alleviation. So over the years we've been working really hard, and these are some of our impacts. I'm not going to run through them all now because I want to keep this presentation quite brief, but we started work with quite a young organisation. We're babies in the space. So I founded the organisation when I was at university, but we started really running in July 2015, and then worked seasonally, and only now this year have we started working all year round. So being able to achieve everything that we have in this short time, we're quite proud of. Although COVID has obviously presented some challenges, large challenges in our road to conservation, especially with regards to ecotourism and limitations that COVID has presented. But we're hopeful that the future will be looking up, and we'll be able to move forward. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell. Oh yeah, that's just our last slide with our socials and stuff. So if anyone wants to check out our Instagram and social media, then it's just at Love the Oceans, and our website, lovetheoceans.org.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, Francesca. Thanks for talking us through that. And just to let everybody know, again, these slides will be shared after today's events as well, so you'll be able to read some of that impact in greater detail afterwards. And yeah, in particular, it's just really great to hear about how ecotourism has enabled such an impressive list of community activities. And I think especially the mixture of research, education, and community programs such as sustainable fishing really emphasizes the need to have a multi-pronged approach in making meaningful long-term impact. And you mentioned the challenges there that 2020 have brought. So I think we'll be talking about that in a little bit more detail, probably in the question and answer session a little bit later and in our breakout groups. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Francesca, and we'll hear a little bit more from you in a bit. So next we're going to go over to Indonesia and have an introduction from Laura Kelsum from Stay Raja Ampat. Over to you, Laura.
Hello, nice to see you. Okay, then I will start. Hello, my name is Laura Kelsum. You can call me Laura. Today, I would like to talk about the community-led ecotourism in Raja Ampat. What are the benefits, what that is take, and what is its future after the COVID-19? Okay, next. Okay. So, I work with the Raja Ampat Bahari Sejahtera as a business developer. This is a company owned by a local community, this is a company owned by a community organization named Raja Ampat, the Association of Indigenous Community Entrepreneurship and Livelihood in Raja Ampat, also known as the Raja Ampat Homestay Association. Raja Ampat members currently consist of 120 local homestay owners in Raja Ampat, and this number has increased rapidly from only 12 homestay in 2010. This association is dedicated to improving the well-being of Raja Ampat indigenous community on their own land while restoring and sustaining the island's unique ecosystem for future generations. So next. Okay. This is the owner of the company, Airworkers the Money Group. So this company owns websites that accept booking and payment, so that company can earn its money from the booking commission. And each member has one share, which according to the agreement cannot be traded. When they resign from the association, they automatically lost their share, and they also agree that the company profits will also not be distributed to the member, but will be used to support programs that improve the community quality of life. Okay, next. How big is the impact of the homestay business for the community? So we estimate the total turnover of homestay accommodation payment can reach up to 3 billion rupiah or $210,000 per month in a busy month, such as in October to February. And that doesn't include the turnover of money from the tourist activity. So that's only from the accommodation. And homestay also absorb labor. We estimate that more than 800 people work in the homestay industry as a manager, staff, or service provider, such as beach guide, bird watching guide, and boat driver. Homestay have also shifted the center of economic activity from the city of Waisai to the village, encouraging the young people to return and stay in the village. Okay, next. From the ecological perspective, people appreciation for nature is increasing. Community initiatives to participate in marine and terrestrial conservative activity are increasingly high. For example, now they stop the hunting and selling of protected wildlife such as birds or turtles, and they also warn level boats that throw anchor in a shallow water. Also, the increasing popularity of homestay business also reduces the land sale. Land ownership in Raja Ampat is what we call communal land, and it involves a very complex and long family history. Until now, the state has not recognized communal land ownership, and transfer of land ownership to foreigners always creates family division. So when locals start running homestay business, they understand that land is a vital asset that must be protected. So they start thinking, why I have to sell it when I can build my own business and then I can earn more money. Okay. Homestay also have a good impact in respect of women role. So they understand the success of this business relies heavily on service generally provided by women, such as hygiene and food. So this understanding puts women in a stronger position and it reduces domestic violence. In addition, increased financial independence encourages people to no longer live depending on age. Instead, they develop better social relationship with family on other islands, which are homestay, and then they build a mutual help system. Okay, next. Okay, so what happened with homestay in Raja Ampat during the COVID-19? So during the COVID, obviously, there was no tourist activity for about several months starting from last March. But on October, the local government officially opened Raja Ampat for domestic tourists. But now only very few number are coming. So we're waiting for tourist tourism to normal. Homestay owner has spent their time repairing or adding bungalow, opening garden or fishing. You can see in the picture. So the survey we conducted in September indicate that even though they complain about the lack of guides, they have also enjoyed time off from the hazard of tourist activity. One of the members actually said, "It is the mama that you can see in the picture. Is Toko Telo from the ground." He said, "Thank you, Corona, because now all my family can gather and we have time to reopen the garden on our land that has long been abandoned due to the homestay activity." Also, the diving and snorkeling spots that are usually crowded, such as Manta Point, has reportedly seen an increase in the number of manta fishes and more fish in overall. So this is a good point. But there is also but. On the other hand, the decline in economic activity increased people dependency on natural resources. We received several reports of lodging where prior to COVID there was no lodging and more illegal bagans are operating in the area. Bagan, you can see in the fourth picture, Bagan is a fishing crew that use net and light to attract the fish. Bagan usually use a very large net with a very small hole so that small fish are caught and then distributing the leftover. Bagan is actually illegal in Raja Ampat, but however, some have made agreement with villagers to operate it in the Bari area. Okay, next. Oh, sorry, can we go back? Sorry. I almost forget. There is also concern among members that if the COVID crisis lasts longer, it is possible that there will be some people interest in selling land into the investor. This is both a threat to local business as well as a source of conflict between the family, because as I told you in the beginning, how the land have a very long and complex history. Also, that investors tend to privatization, which then can limit people access to their own natural resource. Okay, next. So, how's the future of tourism in Raja Ampat? So, judging from our booking trend, our opinion is that Raja Ampat will quickly recover after the Indonesian government opened the border for tourism. We experienced a shock, but it was not as bad as what happened in Bali or Komodo. There are some interesting factors that explain why Raja Ampat community will likely survive COVID-19. First is that homestay are owned by the local and established on their own land. Staff are generally family members, so they are not burdened with the high operational cost for staff and business capital. So when there is no guest, they can simply close the business and do the other things to survive. And second is that Raja Ampat people is are some of the most resilient I ever had. I have seen Raja Ampat before the tourism bloomed in 2010 during the golden era of tourism, and now in the pandemic. The fact that they can build a business despite all the limitation of living in such a remote area with almost zero support from the government, bank, or other institutions, it proves that they are likely to be broken by COVID. Okay, next. Okay, next. Okay. So in the future, the company and the association will develop other sectors such as education, health, energy, transport, agriculture, fisheries, because we understand that tourism cannot stand alone, and diversification of business within the community needs also be carried out, not only to support tourists, but also to reduce dependence on goods from outside Papua, all of which are imported with a large carbon footprint. We also need to support the independent community groups such as the association, as we believe their aspiration must be met as a consideration in determining regional policy. They need to develop the skill to lobby and advocate for creative solutions so that the ecotourism sector remains sustainable. While it is true that the tourism is important, but there are other things that are more substantial. Things that should not change are their land, sea, and families. It's not tourism that feeds them for generation. It's their nature and the social relation, and any disturbance of those that we should worry. Okay, next. Okay, and the last, I just want to say that once again, the purpose is not to create a big tourism industry, but to make ecotourism as an alternative to making a living without sacrificing human and environmental value. Okay, I think, yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, thanks very much, Roya. That's yeah, some really incredible insight into Stay Raja Ampat there. So I'm sure we're going to get some more questions on that a little bit later. But for me, the scale of the success that Stay Raja Ampat has achieved in such a small space of time really is quite incredible. And in particular, it's having a community cooperative that recognizes its success is interlinked with sustainability, community development, environmental management. Yeah, it's really fantastic to hear, and long may that continue. Okay, so thanks, Laura. And we're going to introduce you to our next speaker now, which is Adrian Wells from the consultancy firm 73. So BV, Blue Ventures 73 and WWF recently collaborated on the development of a community homestay toolkit that we will share after this event. Adrian, could you maybe begin by telling us a little bit more about what you do and your involvement in putting this toolkit together? Oh, we can't hear you just yet.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to share a little bit of our experience today. Just a little bit of background. As Ryan said, we're a small consultancy firm. Actually, we're a small social enterprise. And we've got a particular interest in demonstrating forms of local community control over land and natural resources. What does that look like in practice? And that includes support to enterprise development, the sorts of businesses like Stay Raja Ampat, organizational and leadership capacity, and also popular education. And we first got engaged in Raja Ampat back in about 2012. We were asked by the Bird Said Seascape initiative, it's a marine protected area initiative in West Papua province in Indonesia, to try and strengthen the economic incentives for conservation. And what we found at the time, when we first engaged with communities in Raja Ampat, our focus was not initially on homestays. Our main interest was in what are the entry points by which we can best incentivize communities to collaborate and to organize around the sustainable management of their fisheries and around conservation. So we looked at sustainable fisheries, we looked at sustainable agriculture. But the one thing that communities were most motivated to try out was the homestay sector. Some of them had worked in resorts. They'd learned a little bit of, they had a bit of experience in the hospitality sector. A couple had tried homestays and they were relatively successful. So that's what we ended up going with as the most powerful entry point for community organizing. And Laura's story, I think, is testimony to the scale of what has happened, what has emerged out of that over the past, 8 years now. Though I think, in retrospect, one thing that we could probably share from that experience is that it's important not, I think we were very focused on the homestay sector itself. But in developing these sorts of initiatives, it's also important to consider to bring in other livelihoods around that, because ecotourism will only ever benefit part of the community and not everybody. And so it's very important, and we've learned over time how important it is to think about linking ecotourism with sustainable agriculture and sustainable fisheries, and all the sort of how those reinforce each other as a way of bringing the entire community together. And it's that experience that we've tried to describe in the manual that we developed together with Blue Ventures. Another thought that I would possibly share is that actually in developing ecotourism initiatives, the easy bit is the business. Yeah, the website, the marketing, the business development, that's the relatively easy part. The much more challenging part is in the development of strong community institutions. I think one of the things that has really shaped how we've worked in Raja Ampat is not to create dependencies that cannot be sustained. We couldn't be there forever. Other NGOs can't be there forever. Conservation ultimately depends on the ability of communities to be able to govern their own land and their own sea for themselves in the longer term. Which is why we put so much effort into the development of the Homestay Association as the community organization which ultimately owns Stay Raja Ampat as a business. And we found that that is really the thing that is most time consuming. It involves a very deep conversation in the community around values. Why is community important? What does community consist of? Because there's a very clear relationship between, if you have healthy community, then it is so much more possible to have healthy country in the sense of the land and the sea that communities depend on. And part of our challenge was that really the homestay sector was growing so rapidly that we were actually struggling to keep pace in terms of the community organization's ability to develop as quickly as that. So that's just another sort of take-home message, I think. Apart from maybe not just focusing on ecotourism, but also on the other sectors around it, is to also think very carefully about the kinds of community institutions that ultimately own and run ecotourism businesses. There's a lot that needs to be developed there in terms of leadership capacity, management capacity, understanding why transparency and accountability are important, agreeing on rules and standards and holding each other to account on those. Those are all things which take a lot of time and patience to learn. And the Homestay Association in Raja Ampat has made huge progress, but I think as a lesson to share with other communities, that's, I think, probably the most important one.
Yeah, that's again really fascinating to hear, Adrian. And I think the real key thing there seems like the association and this group is one of the key factors in making a successful arrangement like this. And in fact, that actually answers my second question that I was going to ask around kind of the most important considerations when building such a community-centered business. And I think you've nicely summarized those points. And again, just to kind of let everybody know that this Homestay Toolkit, again, kind of talks through all of those different processes that Adrian was just speaking about. So if that does sound of interest to people, then please do download that and have a read through in your own leisure, because it's a really incredible document. And just very quickly, Adrian, I wanted to ask you one more question. If you could just quickly summarize, I think there's a danger that alternative livelihoods, such as ecotourism, can simply move dependency from one area to another. So how do you feel we can ensure that we build that further resilience in these communities, and then we're not just moving that dependency?
I think, as I said earlier, it's important to have as diverse a portfolio as possible from the very beginning. Ecotourism doesn't, it may work in certain places like Raja Ampat, but it's not a solution everywhere. It's actually very context specific. In other places where we're working, we're actually finding that small-scale sustainable agriculture is a much more effective entry point for community organizing. And we've seen that, how important it is, particularly over COVID-19. In fact, it's a more powerful entry point for community organizing than even capture fisheries. So maybe that is, when you're talking about local resilience and local self-sufficiency, that's a really good starting point, out of which you can then branch into other sectors.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you for that answer, Adrian. Okay, so I think now we can actually start the Q&A session. We can bring our panelists back into the room. So yeah, great. Thank you for those updates, guys. We actually have some questions that have come in already. So this first question is for Francesca. So you mentioned educating the community. I'm wondering if and how local knowledge is integrated in your approach.
Yeah, local knowledge is always important. I'm British in origin, as you can hear, so I'm never going to know as much about this area as the people that live here, and it's really important that that's appreciated when you're doing your work. So in terms of all of our, because we have a few different educational initiatives, so we've got the youngsters, the 10 to 13-year-olds that we work in schools with, so that educational initiative that is agreed with the elders, so all of the syllabus is written in conjunction with the elders and the teachers and the chiefs in the community too, and it supplements the national curriculum, so it adds on to what they're already learning, it largely in biology and geography, so it just supplements that really, and we just use free periods. It's completely optional for people to attend, but it is very oversubscribed. And yes, we utilize that obviously with our educational initiatives with the adults, especially the fishermen. It's really important to utilize the local knowledge, because that's some of the most valuable information you can get to be able to understand what's feasible in your projects and stuff, and what's needed, because it's really important that foreign entities don't just come in, especially with scientists and stuff. You don't just come in, do your research, and then go, this is what has to happen. You've got to appreciate that everyone who lives here knows what's going on a lot better. So utilizing that and communicating respectfully as well, which is why Pascal, our community outreach manager, he's an absolute dream. He is spectacularly talented at communicating science in a culturally appropriate way and making sure that everything is handled correctly, and everyone's kind of user ed stuff. He runs all of the community meetings and things. So, for example, ways of utilising local knowledge. We have our sustainable fishing project, which is transitioning away from net use here. So the fishermen have always wanted to not use nets because everyone knows that nets are unsustainable, but there hasn't been a financial option not to, because the government provides nets for free, and you have to buy any other types of fishing equipment. So they haven't been able to move away from net use, and our sustainable fishing project is doing that. So we Love the Oceans, with our charity status, secures kayaks and pole and line fishing gear and things like that. But initially, when we were discussing it, I thought, oh well, spearfishing, because spearfishing is globally generally acknowledged as a very sustainable method of fishing. But actually, utilising the local knowledge of the fishermen here was extremely useful, because the fishermen were like, well, actually, because of our shelf formation and the currents and stuff, with spearfishing, we're limited very much to just swimming out and then limited because of the currents and stuff to staying very close to shore. So they couldn't get out to get the pelagic fish, which were the more sustainable fish to catch. So actually, if we'd tried to do the initiative with spearfishing, we would have actually done more damage, which is a really good indicator of why utilising local knowledge is absolutely crucial when running conservation projects. So yeah, we do definitely utilise local knowledge.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. Thanks for that, Francesca. Great answer. Okay, so the next question, we'll try and get through a few more quite quickly now. So question for Laura. As a result of the community homestay project, do you also see increased role of women in community governance and decision-making processes?
I would say yes, but it's not like a drastically no, but we're really trying to give a safe space for the women to give their opinion. We even have one woman we're trying to run as a house representative in the Raja Ampat region. I think we start see that they are have more confidence to give their aspirations, and it's a big step, but we still need more time to see is it really working or not. But we are going in the right direction, I think. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's really good to hear. Okay, so moving on to the next question. This one's for Adrian. And the question is, could a rise in corporate and individual social responsibility give a competitive advantage to community-led and sustainability-focused destinations when the market reopens?
Yeah, I'm not sure if specifically as a result of the pandemic there is necessarily more interest in sustainable destinations and in corporate social responsibility, but certainly what we've seen emerging in Raja Ampat over the past 8 years is that the Homestay Association have tapped into a particular discerning market of people who are looking for an alternative to resorts and want to spend their money in a way that they know will benefit local communities and families directly. And as you've seen from the figures represented by Laura, that was a much larger market than we expected. Sure, I mean, there's a substantial slice of visitors who are just looking at homestays as the cheaper form of accommodation, but the majority appear to be people who have a genuine interest in giving back to the communities and ecosystems that they're visiting, have a genuine interest in local culture. And I think that is a market, I mean, if things return to where they were before the pandemic, that is a market that could possibly only continue to grow. And yes, it would give community-owned initiatives like Stay Raja Ampat a competitive advantage. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's a really great answer again, Adrian. And I think that's another thing we'll be able to discuss a little bit more in the breakout groups as well. So we've just got one final question that we're going to go into now. But again, I will emphasize that we will have a much more open space to talk about some of these topics in more detail in the breakout sessions next. So if you haven't had your question answered, then hopefully we will get a chance to do that in the next part of this event. Okay, so the last question is for Francesca. So it's, what are your priorities in the coming months and years ahead as the sector looks to rebuild? Are you able to adapt around COVID-19, or is it a case of waiting until a vaccine is more widespread and available?
It's a combination, I think. Obviously, we're hopeful that there'll be a vaccine and things that will return to normal in terms of travel. You know, it will be more widely available again, and that would be great because previously that's been our main source of income. I think the last couple of months we've really learned that we need to find other sources of income quite urgently. So we've been trying to get more corporate sponsors, applying for more grant cycles, and trying to run more online campaigns. We built much more of an online presence than we had previously. And that's mainly because when you're looking for like sponsorship from companies and things, they want to know what kind of audience you have, which is the world we live in today and social media use, right? Yeah, we've kind of shifted our focus a bit more away from tourism, but we are really hopeful that the tourism industry does come back, because in Mozambique, the tourism industry has dropped by 95% in the last like 8 months, and the number of people employed that have become unemployed is heartbreaking. And in our area, there was already a 70% unemployment rate. So people were already largely reliant on subsistence farming and fishing. And you've gone from 70% reliant on it to 100%, which is not good for the environment, but also not good for the people, because it really limits people's opportunities to make money and get out of poverty. So we are really hopeful that ecotourism does come back, but we also appreciate, for the purposes of, you know, COVID and stuff limiting tourism, we need to expand and be able to find new sources of revenue for our projects. So that's where kind of grant cycles, but even grant cycles have been delayed a lot. So, like, we've looked at a lot of them that we're going to apply for this month and next month, they've all been delayed till February. So I mean, even that is not really a feasible source of income anymore. So it is a really difficult time, but we're trying our best.
Yeah, no, thank you for that answer. And that should link in quite well with the second event that WWF will be hosting soon about innovative finance solutions for these kind of operations. So that will be an interesting one to tune into. And on that topic as well, I think Laura mentioned earlier that the trends seem to suggest that there is still a demand for these products. So although everybody accepts that the market is closed off at the moment, that people are still interested. And as soon as those markets do reopen, it seems like there is a lot of demand waiting for these businesses when they are able to move again. So yeah, hopefully we are able to make use of that opportunity again in the near future. Okay, so I think that's all the time that we have questions for at the moment. Yeah, thank you very much for everybody that did submit those questions. And again, we'll be able to address some more of those in the next breakout sessions. So for those that have pre-registered for the workshop, we'd like to now invite you to discuss these issues. And you should be able to find this link both on the screen at the moment and in the comments section. You should also have an email with this link as well. So there will be a video that will be played as we sort out the groups. That should take a couple of minutes, but we should be able to see you on the other side soon. Further instructions will be given once you've clicked on the link. But again, we invite you to share ideas and experiences openly, and really trying to enable everyone to benefit from the considerable experience that sits in this room and sits within the audience today as well. So thanks again to our speakers, and we'll see those of you that are in part 2 in a few minutes. Thanks very much.